It's your bear here. And like a lot of people, I'm waiting on Nintendo to release information about these upcoming games. Well, not you, Bayo. Get out of here. I'll see you in about 3.5 months. But while waiting, I thought, why not make a video exploring some of the influences that inspired developers while making Breath of the Wild and its upcoming sequel? Now, a lot of people liken the Legend of Zelda series to Western fairy tales and folklore, and there is definitely a lot of similarities there. But the series has taken inspiration from multiple cultural and religious traditions over the years. And as it developed, the Legend of Zelda series began incorporating more of the traditions of Japan, particularly those of Buddhism and Shinto. And in my opinion, it is these traditions that help the world of Breath of the Wild feel so grounded and well developed. This is partially because many of these concepts are rooted in our real world. Take, for example, some of the architecture in Breath of the Wild. Many of these buildings resemble temples or other important buildings found throughout Japan. And in front of some of these buildings, you'll find what is pictured here, a Tori gate. Tories are gateways which mark the threshold that separates the everyday world from the sacred spaces found throughout the world. The game features many Tori-like structures, often seen in front of towns, important buildings, or even sometimes marking shrines. In Japan, the term Jinja is used to describe a shrine. There are 120 shrines found throughout the world of Breath of the Wild, and in the real world, Shinto shrines can be found just about everywhere in Japan. Sometimes shrines will have large dedicated spaces to them, or could be tucked away in a back alley behind large buildings, or in some cases, out in the middle of nature, completely remote and by itself. Additionally, shrines are often built on higher ground. This is another way to denote the sacred space and keep it separated from the common world around it. This is often the case in Breath of the Wild as well. A great example of this is Kakariko Village, which has 2 shrines situated high above the village itself. The more of Hyrule that you explore in Breath of the Wild, the more you'll notice how many shrines are situated on higher ground. Kami are generally regarded as the energy or manifested spirits of remarkable natural locations, incredible phenomenon, animals, or even important people. The location of Kami are often marked by shrines or even statues where people can leave offerings. There are a very large number of Kami celebrated in the Shinto tradition. This large number of Kami in our world is very similar to the whopping 900 Koroks found throughout all of Hyrule. One of the most common ways for people to interact with Kami is by leaving them offerings. These offerings can be made of food or money. Similarly, offerings of food or other items can be left in-game whenever Link comes across a statue with a stone tray in front of it. By leaving an offering, Link will receive, let's call it a blessing, from the Koroks. This practice of leaving offerings to important spirits of the forest is taken directly from Shinto rituals. The Koroks, the Great Deku Tree, and even the dragons are likely representative of Kami, but there are even more. As I mentioned earlier, important people can also become Kami. When Satoru Iwata, CEO of Nintendo, passed away during the development of Breath of the Wild, the team paid honor to him by immortalizing Satoru in-game as the Kami of Satori Mountain. The Lord of the Mountain is said to be a Kami who watches over all animals that make their home in the forest, much as Satoru would have watched over everyone at Nintendo. In this way, Satoru is forever immortalized as a Kami within Hyrule's lore. Purification is another important aspect of Shinto. Breath of the Wild takes place during a time when much of Hyrule is corrupted by malice. In Shinto belief, pollution and corruption are considered an abstraction to the flow of life. In Breath of the Wild, this malice is found almost everywhere, corrupting not only the lands of Hyrule, but the divine beast and one of the great dragons. This corruption needs to be removed or purified in order to gain the blessings of certain creatures or find hidden treasures. In the real world, impurities need to be removed when entering a sacred space before seeking blessing from the Kami. This purification is most regularly seen in the process people go through when entering a shrine, but another example of this can be how people prepare before getting into an onsen. Onsen are hot springs, which are famous the world over and have become a really important part of Japanese culture. In Breath of the Wild, you can find many hot springs hidden throughout the regions of Hyrule. While in-game, there isn't a method of purifying yourself before entering the hot spring, the springs themselves provide purification and healing for our hero. I know I've been focusing quite a lot on the Shinto aspects of Breath of the Wild, but it is also important to note that Buddhist and Shinto traditions often exist side by side in Japan. The influences of Buddhism play an important role in Breath of the Wild as well. One example of this is Sokushinbutsu. The mummified Shika monks found throughout the game are likely a reference to real-world monks who gave their own lives to try to reach enlightenment. In Japan, it is believed many hundreds of monks have attempted self-mummification, but only 24 such mummies have been discovered as of the posting of this video. This is an extremely rare practice, and is likely what inspired the Shika monks who watch over shrines in-game. Another well-known Japanese tradition is bonsai. This is the practice of mimicking the shape of real trees with smaller potted trees, and it has become deeply ingrained throughout Japanese culture. The purpose of bonsai is to invoke contemplation in the viewer and exercise effort for growth in both the caretaker and the viewer. I feel like the various tree puzzles found in Breath of the Wild are a form of bonsai. In these puzzles, the player has to carefully prune one tree to match two other nearby trees. Jizo are statues that you will find all throughout modern-day Japan. These statues are said to be guardians of both children and travelers. In Breath of the Wild, statues with a similar shape can be found all throughout Hyrule. I feel like the developers were putting these here to help guide and protect Link on his long journey. Now, I highly doubt this is an exhaustive list. I kept discovering new connections as I prepared to make this video, and this video took way longer than I thought it would. The more you explore the lands of Hyrule, the more of Shinto and Buddhist influences that you're likely to find. I find these aspects of Breath of the Wild to be really helpful in building out a believable and enjoyable world. And I really hope that the developers continue to take inspiration from all of these influences when building out Breath of the Wild sequel. Based on trailers for the new game, it does appear that developers will continue this trend. Two immediate standouts from the trailer are in this one scene. It's very reminiscent of Ginkgo trees in autumn, and also Link is running towards the big gate in the background, which looks like another Tori. But what do you think? Do these traditional Japanese influences make for a stronger game, in your opinion? Are you excited to see the Breath of the Wild sequel? Were there any other connections that I may have missed? Let me know in the comments below. Please, as always, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, maybe subscribe to the channel. It really does help out. And as always, thank you very much for watching.